Hey guys, welcome to Code and Box Automation Lab. This is Sharful. In this lecture, we're going to see class and object in TypeScript. So we'll see what is class, what is object, the relationship between a class and object, some properties of a class, and so on. So let's have a very quick some definition. What is class? So a class can be defined as a template or blueprint that describe the behavior or states of its object and type support. So this sentence could be very heavy weighted, right? So to make it simple, like you can think about a class is a template, which is a logical entity, right? There is no physical object of a class. I mean, there is no physical object. That means it is totally the class concept. It's totally a logical thing where it has some ideal, behavior, or you can say there's some properties. And when I say properties, it means some variables, method, or even the constructor. We'll see what is constructor. Like constructor is like a special type of method. So, so overall, the class is nothing. It's just a logical entity. It's a template or blueprint. It's give you some concept of a behavior of a class, some states like or properties. And what is object then? An object is an instance of a class, means you are making a copy of that class. A single class can create number of unique objects. So object is the real thing, like tangible thing. You can see it, you can touch it, okay? And the class is intangible thing. So class give you ideal structure, you can think, and object is a real copy of your class. So object, it's a tangible thing, you can physically, you can see it. Like, example, the class give you some behavior, some idea, and from there you make an object. So you can make a multiple, as many as object you want based on your class, okay? And the relationship between class and object, let's see. The class and object relation, it's that class is a blueprint, as we know, while object are actual object things like the physical entity in the real world, right? Here is an example. The dog is a class and the real dog is an object of the class. So it means, like, you can see on the left side, this is a dog. It is just an animal type of class, just a dog. When I say dog, it is a logical thing, so we know it means it has some properties. That the dog can have some properties like some different sound, right? Like its color, its age. So those are the different properties of a dog, right? And also it does some job, like it eats, it sleep, it sit, it runs. So those are the method, because a method is nothing, it's it does some specific job. So it is a kind of job, right? So sleep is kind of job. So a dog class, it's nothing, it's a combination of some variable and method. So here is some variable or properties, like it's a define the dog's behavior, like how the dog makes sound, what's the dog's the color, or what would be the age. So those are the some properties or behavior stage of a dog. And also some method, which is define the dog, it can does some job. So this is just the blueprint. So that's why I'm saying that this is a dog class, and based on this class you can make a number of object. So one object could be the dog number 1. So it will have its own name, and it will have its own color and age, and it will have its own method. Like it could have some it how it method works for this specific dog. And then the sleep method, sit method. So similarly you can have a multiple the dog object based on this dog class, right? So and each and every object will have its own entity. It means its own properties. It's a clone, it's the same properties will have each and every dog based on the class, but the value of the properties will be unique, right? Will be different. And so this is that you can see here is a 3doc. I created 3 object of based on this doc class, right? So this 3doc is a real exist, animal that you can see. It's a tangible thing. So when you create an object of a dog, it's a hold the data, in the database. So that's why we're saying like the dog is the real thing. I mean, the object is the real thing and the class is a logical thing. Okay, so object is a physical thing and the class is a logical thing. Okay, I hope this makes it very clear. Okay, so let's go to our VS Code to see the some real implementation of a class and object. So here I'm in VS Code and I create one file. It's a TS file. I give it name class example or whatever the file name you want to give. You can give it name. And let's create a class. So first thing, how to create a class. So very simple, like other languages. So to create a class, all you have to do just you are going to type, it's a keyword, it's called class. You can see, you will find right away, and the class, and then you will give a name of a class. Okay, so example, you can give a name. We're going to give a name. It's called students. Okay, students or whatever the class name. So this is a name and this is a class keyword that will define that's I'm going to create a class by the name of student. And here is the the class body. So this is the body of a class. Okay, here you're going to type all of your code that belongs to this students class. Okay, so first we're going to say declare some variables. So example, so since it's a student class, so we'll declare some variables, say SID. Okay, and to declare a variable, this is a variable name, and then the type of the variable that you have to declare by through the colon in TypeScript. I hope that you know about it. If you don't know, please see our variable, our first class or tutorial related to the variable of in TypeScript. So anyways, so here is a one variable SID, and then s name, another variable, and its a type is string since it's the name, and then as I would say department, DP, let's say give it deep name. Okay, department name, and it's also a string. The type would be the string. Okay, so I just declared 3 variable, but I didn't assign any value to variable. So now the first things, so we know that the class had some properties. So the properties means it could have some variable as well as some method. So first I declare some variable. Now I'm going to assign some value for this variable through a method. The first thing, or what I'm going to do, this is the first approach, to assign variable to a class through the method. Okay, so this is, we're going to assign a variable through method. That's what we're going to do. Okay, this is the number one. This is the number one approach to assign value to a variable through a method. Okay, so let's create a method, give a name. I would say let's give a name display probably student, display student. Okay, that's a method. You just give a name of the method, and then this is the bracket. That means and then you have to declare the type of the method. So what type of this method will only display some value that will be assigned to over here. Okay, so that's why it's a return type, it's a void. Okay, and then method body. So this is the method body. Okay, so here now what I'm going to do, so this method will not do anything, only it will assign some value to this SID, s name, and over here. So what can I, and also it will print it. So to print it, I'm going to use the console.log, right? Console.log. Then I will say, so now I have to call these guys, right? So SID to assign some value. Okay, so to assign some value, I have to call these guys through this inside this method. So how I can call this this variable to this method, because this variable, just remember, this is the instant variable, or you can say it's a global variable, because those variables, it belongs to the class. And now and this is a separate one method, and inside the method it has its own body. So this body have some limitation, okay, to access any global properties. So from a class like this variable, if you want to access over here, you have to use one keyword is called this. Then you can use this, means it's referred to class level. So now this keyword is to help you to refer to the class level, and then you have the access anything inside the class level, that will be cross the limit of your the local or limitation of your function or method over here. So this keyword, using this keyword, you can refer any global variable. So as you can say, as right away, it's referred to all the properties that belongs to a class, which is SID. So I'm saying console this SID. So now I'm referring this SID over here. Similarly, let's refer all other variable s name, and then you can say over here the as department. You can see department, right? Deep name, right? Okay. And now, so this is now method. This method again, and this those variables are the total properties of this student class. Okay, and this method is helping you to assign the value to this variable. So still we haven't passed any value. So now inside this method, I have the all the variables over here. So now if I want to call this method and then pass some value to this method, it will automatically assign those value to this properties, these variables, right? So how can I do this? To do this, I have to create an object of the class. So now it's come to the object quotient. Okay, so this part, this is now, it's a simple class. Okay, which is we understand that class, it has some properties. It could have some variable and method. So here is a variable and method. So this is the simple picture of a class. Now we're going to create a object, because the object is the real entity. So when I want to add or assign some real value, that time you have to create an object, because object is the real the tangible things that exist in the real life. Say like a real dog, right? The dog, it has some real color, right? It has some real method. It has some real the behavior. So now we're going to assign some real value to this variable and call this method. That's why we have to create an object. So object, let's create an object. Create an object. So sorry. So create an object of a class. What do you have to do? Simply you have to use a new keyword, and then called the same name of the class. So this will help you to create an object. So you use the new keyword, and then you call the same name of the class, like student. So this is an object. So what's the way to work? You put the object in a variable. It's called object reference. So example, this is the std, it's a variable, and vertex. Okay, so what we did, we create an object, right? We create an object, and then okay, it's saying not okay, we create an object, and then it puts this object to this std, right, over here in a variable, and then std is the object reference. Okay, so so create an object, right? So create an object, just use the again new keyword and then class name, puts in a variable, and it's a var type, whatever you give. So it's std is the object, it's called object reference. It means this std variable is pointing to this class. It means this std variable have the knowledge of your class. What does it mean? It has the knowledge. It means it has all the properties, idea about all the properties of this class. So it can point, all the properties, means all the variables, methods. So std have the knowledge, all the properties, all the variables, methods of the class of students, right? So now I can easily access any properties from a student's class by using this object reference std, because as I said, it's pointing to this class, right? So let's see this how I can do it. So you put just the object reference std dot, you can see it's give you all the properties x over here. So if I say sd equals to, let's give it some real value 1, then std dot, again let's give a name, say give a name is Shariful, okay, and then std, then the third variable was a department name, right? So it's given name, say science, okay. So now you are assigning, I'm assigning all the variables, like all these 3 variables, but through this some real value and using object reference, okay, object reference. So now I can now easily call the method also std dot, you can see the method name is the display student, right? So this display student, what's doing, it has the printing statement, statement of this all this variable, and now all these variables is already assigned over here, right? So using this object reference, right? So indirectly you can say this method is helping you, it's helping you to print the value of the unassigned or global variable underneath the class, okay. So let's see if I just save it, and I wanna just the print it. Let's print it, okay. So to print it, we know that's we have to use for is TypeScript, right? So due to the TypeScript, so how to print it, or execute the file. To do this, sudo and then tsc, right? And the file name, what's the file name? Class example .ts, right? Oh, it is, I need a password, okay. And then after, when you execute, when you run your ts file, your compiler will convert to the js file, okay. You can see there is already js file, it's the same name, right? So js file has been created. Now you are going to execute actual js file to see the output. To do this, it's a node file, node and your class, the file name, class example dot now js. Here we go, you can see the output over here, 101. So it's a 101 Shariful science. So all these things, this is the value in all these 3 properties or variable, and it was assigned over here, it was assigned over here through the object reference, and then the print was done through this method. So this is the first approach, you can say assign variable. You can say, sorry, this is not the assign variable to, I would say, object reference, object, this is the first one, okay. Assign variable first through the object reference, what we did over here. This is the first approach, okay. So let's see what's the second approach. You create a class, then how you can access the properties of a class and create an object, okay. So let's see this, the second approach. The second approach would be initialize a variable through the method. Now this is the first one, as initialize the variable or assign the variable through the object reference. Now it's a second would be, we're going to say initialize the variable through method. Let's see we can do over here. Number 2, say initialize variable, okay, through method. How can we do this? Let's create another, another method. Let's give a name set details. Set details, okay. And now this is the method, and we're going to the return type outputs a void again, and this is the body of the method, and let's pass some parameter inside the method. So this time the previous method didn't have any parameter, empty. Now we're going to pass some parameter. Say I would say ID, and its a type would be number, right? And then I would say name, and type would be string, right? And then I would say another one would be say dname, and also a string. Okay, so I pass 3 parameter for this set details method. Okay, now in this method, through this method, I'm gonna initialize the value to those global parameter, right? It's global value, we have the variable. So let's call the global variable first. To call the global variable inside a method, what to do? We know this, we have seen in previous method. Like we are going to use this keyword, it will refer to class level, then access any variable from here. Let's do sid. So this sid, it means the global sid equals to, I'm going to assign value. So over here we don't have any value. What we can do, we declare some parameter over here, like id. So whatever the value on later on for this id, that value will be assigned to actual sid variable. So this time now I'm going to put this id, this parameter, the local variable for this method, which is inside the parameter, I'm going to assign to this global variable sid. Okay, just similarly I will say this dot, what's the s name, so next variable is s name equals to, I will pass this name, right? So the other parameter, and then next one would be as this dot. So what's the third global variable? As department, right? Department name equals to, I will pass, here is the d name, this the local variable to the global variable. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, let's make a comment those things. Now again, I create an object, so sdd is the object reference for this class. So, and now if I call this method, okay, this method, now you can see I'm going to able to call this set details method. So let's see how can I do this over here. Std dot, you can say set details method. Okay, so I'm calling this method. As soon as I call this method, set details method, you will see there is an error over here. It's saying, you can read it over here, expected a 3 argument but got 0. It means in this method I have a 3 parameter which is expecting 3 argument or 3 actual value. So I have to pass now actual some value. So for id, let's pass, I would say 1 or 2, and then the value for the for other one would be, I would say, let's put John. Okay, and what's the other one? It's d name, so another, I would say this is department name, right? So let's art. Okay, so this is the 3 parameter, this is the 3 actual value. This will be assigned, so 1 or 2 will assign to id, and the John will assign to name, and the art will assign to d name. It means now id is 1 or 2, id is 1 or 2, it means sid is 1 or 2, and the John will assign to s name, and also our department will assign to s department name variable. So you see how the global variable got assigned through this method, right? Now, and then second method will just print the value of those a variable. So if I run again, let's save it first, and then let's run it again. Okay, let's clear it, run it again, and then okay, that's all right. And then run the JS file, node class example.js file. You can see now, it's printing 1 or 2 John art, okay, through this method, and through this, set details method. I'm passing the actual value which is assigned to over here instead of ID name, and it gets the SID, the global variable is getting the real value. So that's a way you can assign, or initialize value to a global variable through the method. Now there's one more way you can initialize variable through constructor. So let's say what is constructor, or the constructor, just give you an overall idea, is a special method. It works like a method, like we have seen, like you can create a method, but the only difference, it is a special method. And to create a constructor, you don't need to give any name, unlike any other programming language. Like at the Java, you have to, let's declare the constructor. We'll see, initialize variable to constructor. Okay, this is the number 3. Initialize variable through constructor. Okay, and to declare a constructor, what you have to do, you have to type constructor, and there will be no name. Very important that, like in the Java, if you are familiar with the Java, this, you have to type constructor keyword, and then you have to give a name. Like most of the time you will see the constructor name like a class name, but in TypeScript you don't need to give any name, just a keyword. It's called constructor. Okay, and then it's like a method, so you have to put the parenthesis bracket, and then you similarly, and constructor also another important things for in TypeScript, like constructor, you can have a parameter or empty, doesn't matter, like a method, but it doesn't return anything, not even void. So in the constructor there will be no return. Okay, just to remember that. So let's put the body of the constructor, and here in a constructor, similarly like a method 2, the set details I can pass. Constructor can be empty or can have some parameter like this. So let's make a comment of this method. So the same job like I did set details method, same job I can do through the constructor, and you will see there is a more benefit using the constructor, and this is one of the most famous way to use constructor method to initialize variable. So again, constructor, it has some parameter, right, and it has some value. So let's inside this method body, constructor body, I can pass some code, right? So the same code I'm doing. Okay, so same, this SID, I'm calling those the global variable through this keyword and assigning the value, which is I pass through the constructor parameter, right? So now here, let's make a comments on this method. Sorry, this method, why it's not letting me? Okay, right? And then here, as soon as you will see, when I created method object of the class like new student, now is giving you some error over here. Let's hover your mouse, you can see it's saying constructor, just read it, constructor students. So it has all the parameters, and it's expecting 3 argument but got 0. What does it mean? So as soon as you create an object of a class, and if you have a declared constructor over here like this, you know, if you have a declared constructor and constructor have some parameter, like there's a 3 parameter, this constructor got invoked, got called by default as soon as you create an object. You don't have to use the object reference. See the difference? Like our unlike other method, like I had you know 2 other method, to call those method or invoke those method, I have to use the object reference like std, then you know this is the display method, and std, then set details method. I have to call those method to invoke. But for the constructor, you don't have to call, like you don't have to use the object reference and the method name. As soon as you create the object, it's automatically call this constructor, and it's expecting these 3 parameters. So now you have to, you know, pass the argument or actual value against these 3 parameters. So let's pass the same value. We can pass anything 103, and then say David, and then we can say, you know, whatever you say, science, or let's say engineering, eng, just right. Let's make it short. Okay, so this is the, you know, 3 argument that will assign to now in this constructor. Now id is 103, and the name is David, and department is eng, right, engineer. So here now those value will be assigned to actual global variable, like you know sid name, and then the through this method, display method, it will be print. Okay, you see that through the constructor now we're initializing the global variable. Okay, so let's make a print it, save it first. Let's make it clear. Okay, so run the JS file. Sudo I'm sorry, it didn't, why is, sorry, sudo, I ran the wrong file. Sudo tsc, and then class example dot ts. Okay, now node, you know, class example dot js file. Now you can see, you see we pass 103 David and engineer, so it's printing 103 David and engineer over here. And how it's possible? It was possible through the constructor. Again, this is a very important things. Like, please remember, as soon as you create an object of a class, and if your object have a constructor, you know, it's called automatically that constructor, and that's why it was expecting giving you error message, so that we can pass the actual, you know, pairing value or argument that we passed in this constructor. If you don't have a constructor, it's called the default constructor. So if you don't declare the real constructor, still there is some invisible constructor that gets called. So this is the by default, you know, that the class, you know, the process of the class that, you know, your constructor always get called when you create an object of a class. Okay, so that's the 3 different way you can initialize your global variable or your class variable. You know, number 1 again is through the object reference over here, like we did, and then number 2 through the method. You know, you can create a method and pass create some parameter, pass some parameter, and assign your global variable that those parameter variable, and then call the method, right? Call the method and then pass the actual value. And number 3, which is the most popular way, like creating constructor and then, you know, pass the value to the constructor. Okay, I think that's all, you know, for the class and object. You see this object, and also one more important thing, so you can create multiple, as many as you know, object you want. So like example, we created over here one class, right? So you can create more over here too. So you may give a name as to, this is another second object, right, for this class. So from a class you can create multiple object, right, and then you can just give a different value, maybe shortfall, right, and then you can give a art. Okay, then if you want to run it now, you can see it should. Okay, and then to also you have to std2 dot display student, right, display student, this, that should be, yeah, right. So that's why you can create multiple object from a class, because class is nothing, it's give you one ideal structure, like logical structure, where it has properties like some variable and the method, right, some method. So you will see there's no real value, but object, it has the real value. So when you create an object, it has some real value that will assign to this class. So this is a one clone, this is a one clone of your class, and this is another clone of your class. Okay, so you can have a multiple, as many as object you want based from your class. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Have a good one. Bye bye.